Welcome to Doctrine Deep Dive. There's this profound truth in military thinking, isn't there? Combat power, raw fighting strength, it might win you a battle.
Right. It gets you initial success.
Exactly. But it's sustainment, that continuous, seamless delivery of support that really dictates the pace, the scale, and ultimately whether you win the whole campaign.
It absolutely does. Without fuel, without ammo, without fixing broken equipment, without taking care of your people, even the most brilliant maneuver force just grinds to a halt. It culminates.
And that's the real bottleneck, especially today. The sheer lethality, the speed, the complexity of what we call large-scale combat operations. It means those old, sort of comfortable logistics systems, they're just not going to cut it anymore.
No, not against a peer adversary who can contest everything you do.
Yep.
If you can't maintain that operational tempo, you hit that point of culmination we mentioned. Basically, the force just runs out of steam and can't fight effectively anymore.
So losing sustainment means losing the initiative. It's that critical.
Fundamentally.
Okay, so our mission today, for you listening, is to give you an in-depth but hopefully streamlined understanding of military sustainment doctrine.
Right.
We're really focusing on how tactical forces are kept in the fight.
Yeah, we're talking about units like the division headquarters all the way down to the brigade combat team during really intense peer-level conflict.
And we're going straight to the source material for this. We're doing a deep dive into the foundational documents themselves.
That's right. We're pulling directly from the latest guidance, specifically Army Doctrine Publication 4.0, which covers sustainment overall.
Okay, ADP 4.0.
Then Field Manual 4.0, which gets more into sustainment operations.
FM 4.0, got it.
And then we're digging into the techniques in Army Techniques Publication 490 and Army Techniques Publication 491. These really get into the nuts and bolts.
ATP 490 and 491.
And the whole point of this dive is really to distill those core concepts. What do you need to understand about how commanders ensure their freedom of action? How do they extend their operational reach? How far and how long they can operate effectively.
And prolong that endurance, right? Especially in this really complex modern environment.
Exactly. It's about keeping the force viable against a capable enemy.
So our goal today is to unpack the principles, the functions, the organizations, and the planning considerations that govern this whole crucial and, let's be honest, often underappreciated effort. All right, let's jump right in then. Before we even talk about fuel trucks or medical teams, we need to understand the guiding philosophy, the core beliefs that shape how support should actually be executed. Army sustainment is guided by 8 principles. And these aren't just suggestions, are they? They're interdependent and they're pretty much required for success.
They really are. They form the DNA, if you will, of the sustainment warfighting function. You see them laid out very clearly in Army Doctrine Publication 4.0 and Field Manual 4.0.
Well,
and failing to adhere to even one of these, especially in a prolonged, tough operation, well, it can lead straight to mission failure. Catastrophic failure, potentially.
So let's break them down. The first one is integration. Now, it sounds straightforward, but what does true integration really demand in a complex fight?
Well, it's more than just coordinating. It requires synchronizing all the sustainment elements. We're talking logistics, financial management, personnel services, and health service support.
The whole package.
The whole package. Not just syncing them with the combat plan, the maneuver plan, but also laterally. You have to integrate with joint partners, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and often multinational allies too.
So it's about achieving that complete unity of effort.
Exactly. The goal is making sustainment almost invisible to the maneuver guys because it's woven so tightly into their plan and timeline. It just happens when and where it needs to.
Okay. Principle number 2, and this one comes up a lot, anticipation. You hear this called the most critical one. Why is that?
It really is often cited as the most critical, especially for sustainment leaders. It demands, well, almost a level of prediction. Leaders have to visualize future operations, future requirements, before the maneuver commander even explicitly asks for something.
Why is looking ahead so vital, particularly now?
It boils down to the time-distance problem in large-scale combat.
Right.
It's huge. If you wait for a brigade combat team deep in enemy territory to send up a report saying, hey, we're critically low on Class V ammo, you've probably already missed the window.
Right, the window to actually get it there.
Precisely. Sourcing it, loading it, transporting it across potentially contested routes, that takes time, serious time. So anticipation means sustainers have to use planning tools, intelligence, risk assessment, automated systems where possible.
To see the gaps coming.
To identify those potential support gaps days, maybe even weeks, before they become an immediate crisis. It's the core function that allows commanders to push boundaries, to extend that operational reach without running dry.
Okay, so if anticipation is the proactive planning piece, then responsiveness must be about execution when things inevitably go sideways.
That's a good way to put it. Responsiveness is the ability to react quickly to changing requirements, to meet unexpected needs rapidly. It absolutely requires a flexible, agile support structure. You can't be rigid.
Makes sense. Okay, next up is simplicity. This seems almost counterintuitive given the complexity we've been talking about.
It does, doesn't it? There's definitely a tension there. Modern logistics are incredibly complex, coordinating all those pieces. But the principle of simplicity means the actual operational processes, the procedures, the command relationships, those need to remain as clear and straightforward as possible.
How do you balance that? Simplicity, but also coordinating joint, multinational, interorganizational stuff.
That's the art of sustainment planning, really. Simplicity means avoiding unnecessary layers, having clear tasks, standardized procedures where you can, well-defined command links. Simple processes reduce friction, they enable efficiency.
But you don't want simplicity to limit capability, right?
Exactly. It shouldn't come at the expense of doing what's necessary. If you need a complex coordination process to get, say, specialized repair parts from an ally, you do it. But you strive for simplicity everywhere else. It should facilitate, not hinder.
Okay, and that leads naturally into economy, using resources wisely.
Yes. Economy is about efficient management, disciplined application of resources. Using what you have, fuel, parts, ammo, people, time to achieve the greatest effect.
Especially critical when resources are scarce, like against a peer threat.
Absolutely. In that kind of fight, everything is potentially scarce. Wasting resources through inefficient distribution or poor planning isn't just wasteful, it's an unforgivable error. It directly impacts combat power.
All right. The next principle really defines operations in today's contested environment. Survivability.
It's huge. Survivability is the ability of the force to protect its own support capabilities. We're talking about the sustainment units themselves, the forces, the facilities like supply points or maintenance areas, and crucially, the lines of communication, the routes supplies travel on.
Protecting them from enemy threats across all domains.
All domains. Air, land, sea, cyberspace. If your fuel convoy gets hit or your main supply depot gets taken out by missiles or cyber attack, your maneuver force will starve. Survivability is paramount.
And to make sure those vital resources actually get from, say, the U.S. industrial base all the way to the front lines, we need continuity.
Yes. Continuity is about ensuring that continuous, unbroken link between the strategic level where resources originate and the tactical edge. It's absolutely essential for prolonged endurance.
So a breakdown anywhere along that chain has effects downrange.
Immediately. If a key port gets blocked or a financial process breaks down back stateside, the ripple effect quickly means a shortage of critical items like ammunition or medical supplies right where the fighting is happening.
Okay. And the last principle, improvisation.
Right. Given the uncertainty, the fog of war, the sheer speed and lethality of peer threats, sustainment leaders have to be masters of adaptation. Things will go wrong, plans will change.
So improvisation is that ability to adapt on the fly.
Exactly. Adapting operations, adapting plans to meet a rapidly changing situation, especially when your standard procedures or the resources you were allocated just aren't enough or aren't working anymore. You have to find a way.
It's really clear listening to this how these 8 principles, especially things like anticipation, integration, survivability, continuity, they directly dictate how deep and how long an operation can actually go.
Absolutely.
Adhere to them, you extend operational reach, fail, and you hit that point of culmination much, much faster. The stakes are incredibly high.
No question about it.
Okay, so we've got the guiding philosophy, the principles. Now let's talk about the actual structure of support. Sustainment is built on 4 fundamental pillars, right?
That's right. Logistics, financial management, personnel services, and health service support. Those are the 4 pillars.
Let's start with the biggest one, probably. Logistics.
Yeah.
And the language sustainers use every day, the classes of supply.
Okay. Yeah, this is fundamental. The Army uses an official classification system, you'll find it detailed in Field Manual 4 DeGros, to organize all material into 10 classes.
And classes.
But for tactical operations, day-to-day planning, there are really 5 that tend to be the most critical, the most consequential.
All right, let's hit those 5.
First up is Class 1. That's subsistence. So food, rations, and critically packaged water.
Water. You can't overstate that one.
You really can't. And the planning factors for water are hugely variable. Gallons per soldier per day. It changes dramatically based on the climate.
How much?
Well, in a nice temperate climate, Maybe you plan for 1 gallon per person per day for all needs, but you put that same force in a hot, tropical, or arid desert environment. That requirement could easily jump to 5, maybe even 6 gallons per person per day.
Wow, miscalculate that. And your force degrades incredibly quickly from dehydration.
Extremely fast. Combat effectiveness plummets, so Class I planning, especially water, is crucial.
Okay, next the engine of mobility fuel, Class 3.
Right. Class 3 is petroleum, oils, and lubricants, POL for short. This covers bulk fuel like diesel or jet fuel, and also packaged POL products.
And for offensive operations, this is make or break.
Absolutely. Maintaining momentum in the offense requires high-velocity, precise delivery of bulk fuel. The consumption rates for armored formations, tanks, Bradleys, especially when they're moving fast, penetrating defenses, they are enormous.
Which means you need serious distribution assets.
You absolutely do. You need things like the high-capacity composite truck company, which we'll probably talk about more later, just to keep up with the demand.
Okay. Class 1, Class 3, what's next? Class V.
Class V is ammunition. All types. This class really drives tactical distribution planning. Why? Because consumption estimates aren't just based on some generic rate.
How are they determined then?
They're determined directly by the supported maneuver commander based on the effects they want to achieve. It's tied to the fire plan.
Ah, so if they plan to lay down a lot of suppressive fire.
Exactly. If the commander anticipates needing a high rate of sustained fire to fix an enemy force in place or break through an obstacle, the Class V distribution plan has to match that intensity right then and there. It's very demand-driven.
Got it. Okay, keeping soldiers healthy and equipment running. Class 8.
Class 8 is medical material. Everything from bandages and medications to highly specialized repair parts for complex medical equipment like X-ray machines or ventilators.
Does this pose unique challenges for distribution?
It definitely does. Class 8 includes items that are high value, often have limited shelf lives, and many are temperature sensitive. Think about blood products.
Right, the cold chain.
Exactly. Requires stringent cold chain management, refrigerated transport, and storage all the way forward to ensure that blood or vaccine is still effective when it reaches the patient at, say, the battalion aid station. Lots of complexity there.
Okay. And the last of the big 5 tactical classes, Class 9.
Class 9 is repair parts and components. Basically, everything needed to fix broken equipment, from nuts and bolts to entire engines or transmission assemblies.
This is the foundation of the whole maintenance system.
It absolutely is. Modern military platforms, tanks, fighting vehicles, helicopters, even sophisticated radios and network gear, they are incredibly complex. The demand for Class 9X parts is immense, and managing those stock levels effectively is critical. If you don't have the right part, that multi-million-dollar piece of equipment is just dead weight.
And that Class IX flow ties directly into maintenance doctrine. The Army now uses a 2-level system. Can you break that down? Where does the repair happen?
Sure. This 2-level system is really designed to maximize combat power forward, keep the maneuver force fighting. The first level is field maintenance.
Where does that happen?
This is done by soldiers, usually organic maintainers within the unit or from the brigade support battalion's maintenance company. It happens as far forward as possible, often right in the brigade combat team's area.
And the goal is just to get it running again quickly.
Exactly. Rapid return to operational status. Importantly, field maintenance isn't just swapping parts. It includes diagnosing faults, making adjustments, even battle damage assessment and repair right there. It's pretty comprehensive.
Okay, that's field maintenance. What's the second level?
The second level is sustainment maintenance. This is done at much higher echelons, usually far from the tactical fight, often by specialized civilian personnel from the United States Army Materiel Command.
And their goal is different.
Completely different. Their purpose is to return equipment to a national standard of reliability. Think major overhauls, complete rebuilds, bringing it back to almost factory-new condition.
So does that rebuilt tank go back to the unit that originally sent it back?
Rarely, if ever. Equipment repaired at the sustainment maintenance level usually goes back into the national supply system to be issued out wherever it's needed most.
Ah, okay. So that frees up the tactical commander.
Precisely. They don't have to worry about managing that deep, complex repair process. They can focus solely on the immediate fight, knowing that field maintenance will get things back up quickly and the bigger problems are handled elsewhere.
Okay, that covers logistics and maintenance pretty well. Let's quickly touch on the other pillars. Financial management. Why is this so critical, especially when deployed?
Financial management might seem like a rear area function, but it's vital for enabling operations. It's the system that funds the fight and ensures fiscal responsibility.
So troop pay, things like that.
Yes, but much more tactically relevant, they handle the fiscal law aspects. This involves managing contracts, procurement, and paying for goods and services right there in the operational area.
How does that play out on the ground?
Well, imagine a brigade combat team needs something. Now, maybe they need to hire local trucks for an emergency resupply or buy a large quantity of bottled water locally because their purification system went down.
Right.
The financial management teams working with contracting officers are the ones who have to execute those contracts legally and quickly. They make host nation support, leveraging the resources of the country you're operating in, actually possible.
So failure there could really slow things down.
Absolutely. If you can't quickly and legally acquire local resources or services when needed, it directly undermines responsiveness and tempo. Financial management turns strategic funds into tactical capability.
Okay, makes sense. Let's shift to personnel services. This is about the human dimension, right? Manning the force.
Exactly. And a huge piece of this at the tactical level is personnel accountability and casualty operations. In a lethal, large-scale fight, knowing where every single person is and accurately reporting casualties is paramount.
Army Techniques Publication 491 talks about this, right? Continuous visibility.
Yes. Commanders need real-time, accurate data on their personnel strength. And when casualties happen, especially mass casualty events.
Which are sadly likely in LSCO.
Which are likely, yes.
Yeah.
You need casualty liaison elements and human resources teams working efficiently to process that information. Timely reporting is crucial not just for the commander to understand their combat power, but also for notifying families. Delays there are terrible for morale and trust.
And personnel services also includes things like legal and religious support, right? Providing stability.
Absolutely essential. Judge, advocate, general legal teams advise commanders on everything from rules of engagement to investigations to fiscal law issues that pop up. And the chaplain corps provides direct religious support, but also crucial moral and ethical leadership counseling. Both sustain the resilience of the force.
Okay, final pillar, health service support. We talked about Class 8 medical supplies, but what about delivering the care itself? The roles of care.
Right. Health service support is complex with 10 core medical functions, but tactically we really focus on direct patient care and evacuation. Role 1 care is that immediate life-saving first aid. Think combat medics on the scene or the battalion aid station. Their job is emergency stabilization.
Stopping the bleeding, opening airways.
Exactly. Then you have Role 2 care. This is typically provided by the brigade support medical company or maybe a dedicated medical company area support. Role 2 has significantly more capability. Basic surgery, blood transfusion, holding patients for a bit longer, maybe augmented by a forward surgical team. They prepare patients for evacuation to higher levels of care.
And getting them there is crucial. Medical evacuation or medevac.
Yes, and it's important to distinguish medevac from casevac. Medevac uses dedicated, medically equipped platforms, usually helicopters or ground ambulances marked with the Red Cross or Red Crescent, and staffed by medical personnel providing en route care.
And that's protected under the Geneva Conventions.
Correct. Casevac, casualty evacuation, uses any available transport, a truck, a non-medical helicopter without those markings or dedicated medical staff on board. Medevac offers a much higher chance of survival due to the en route care.
Now, the doctrine has shifted recently to address a really tough scenario. Prolonged care. What's that about?
This is a major recognition of the contested environment. In large-scale combat, you might not be able to evacuate casualties within the golden hour or even within several hours. Enemy air defense, long distances, bad weather, overwhelmed routes, lots of reasons.
So units might have to hold on to critical patients for much longer than planned.
Exactly. Doctrine now acknowledges this and says units must plan for it. It requires strategies for medical force multiplication, maybe training more non-medical personnel in advanced first aid, pre-positioning more supplies, developing telemedicine reach-back. It fundamentally changes the risk calculus for pushing forces deep into contested areas.
Okay, we've covered the philosophy, the principles, and the functions or pillars. Now let's see how this actually gets organized into units on the ground. We want to focus on that tactical flow from the division down to the brigade combat team, right?
Right, where the sustainment mission directly supports the fighting forces.
So at the brigade combat team level, the two key players are the brigade support battalion and the forward support company. Let's start with the brigade support battalion, the BSB.
Okay. The BSB is organic to the brigade combat team, meaning it belongs to it permanently. It functions as the primary logistics hub for that specific brigade. The BSB commander and their staff, especially the support operations section or SPO, are responsible for planning, coordinating, and synchronizing all sustainment within that brigade's area.
They're the brigade's sustainment brain and muscle.
Pretty much, yeah. They manage distribution, maintenance, medical support for the entire brigade.
And then, pushing support even further forward, you have the forward support company, the FSC. This is where the rubber meets the road, isn't it?
That's exactly the phrase. The FSCs are technically organic to the BSB, but in practice, they are almost always attached to or placed under the operational control of the specific maneuver battalion they support, like an infantry or armor battalion.
For how long?
Usually for the duration of a specific mission or operation. This structure is actually a great example of balancing those sustainment principles we talked about.
How so?
Well, having the FSC attached directly to the maneuver battalion enhances integration. The FSC commander is right there in the battalion's planning process. They know the scheme of maneuver intimately, which helps with anticipation.
Okay, makes sense.
But keeping them organic to the BSB allows for economy and continuity. The BSB commander can pool scarce resources, maybe heavy recovery vehicles, or specialized fuel trucks, and allocate them across the entire brigade based on shifting priorities, rather than having them locked into just one battalion. It's a flexible arrangement.
Right. So when the FSC pushes supplies forward from the brigade support area, where do they link up with their supported battalion?
That typically happens at the battalion's combat trains. This isn't a physical train, obviously. It's an echeloned element, usually located a few kilometers behind the forward line of troops.
What's located there?
It's a centralized spot for key sustainment personnel from the battalion, the S1 personnel officer, the S4 logistics officer, the battalion aid station, maybe a forward maintenance collection point, and it's where the FSC delivers supplies.
How are those supplies typically delivered?
The most common method is via logistics packages, or LOGPACs. These aren't just one type of supply. They're pre-configured loads, often on pallets or in containers, containing a mix of what the battalion needs: fuel, water, ammo, food, maybe some critical repair parts, all delivered together for efficiency.
Okay, so that's the brigade level. Now, zooming out one level, above the BCTs, you have the Division Sustainment Brigade, the DSB. This seems like the main integrator at the division level.
It absolutely is. The DSB is the key organization for synchronizing sustainment across the entire division's area of operations, which can be huge. It also integrates support coming from even higher echelons and coordinates with joint and multinational partners operating within the division's footprint.
And it commands subordinate units like the Division Sustainment Support Battalion, or DSSB.
Correct. The DSB acts as the higher headquarters for one or more DSSBs. The DSSB itself is designed to be expeditionary, relatively mobile, and agile.
And what kinds of capabilities does the DSSB bring? Stuff the BSBs don't have.
Exactly. The DSSB commands those specialized functional logistics companies that are considered echelons above brigade assets. These provide capabilities that individual BSBs typically don't possess organically because they're needed across the whole division, not just one brigade.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Think of a composite truck company. These units have a mix of heavy and medium trucks, often including fuel tankers and flatbeds, designed for high-volume, long-haul distribution missions across the division area. Or a composite supply company that can handle bulk storage and distribution of various supply classes. Maybe a field feeding company capable of preparing hot meals for large numbers of troops.
So the DSSB provides flexible command and control over these assets.
Precisely. It directs these companies to where they're needed most, supporting multiple brigades, perhaps establishing forward logistics nodes, or supporting deep penetration operations. They ensure robust throughput across the division.
Now, you mentioned the support operations section, the SPO, within the BSB. There's a similar, bigger version in the Division Sustainment Brigade, right?
Yes, and the division SPO is arguably the single most critical planning and execution cell for sustainment at the division level. It's the operational brain of the DSB.
Where does it fit in the planning cycle?
It kind of bridges the gap between mid-range future operations planning looking days or weeks ahead and the immediate short-range execution management, tracking current operations.
What are its main jobs?
It has three primary functions. First, distribution integration, managing the overall flow of supplies across the division. Second, transportation operations, directing the trucks, managing convoys, coordinating movement. And third, material management tracking inventory, prioritizing requirements for all classes of supply, basically deciding who gets what, when.
They're the ones balancing the needs of multiple brigades.
Exactly. They have the big picture view of supply status and requirements across the entire division area of operations.
Okay, physically, where do all these supplies, the fuel, the ammo, the parts actually pass through at the division level? Is there a main hub?
There usually is. A key distribution node is the Supply Support Activity, or SSA. This is typically operated by the supply platoon within the DSSB's distribution company.
What happens at the SSA?
It functions like a forward, theater-level warehouse and inventory management point. It receives bulk shipments of multiple classes of supply, usually classes 1, 2, 4, V, 7, and Knights. It stores them, manages the inventory using systems like the Global Combat Support System Army, and then breaks them down for onward movement to the BSBs or directly to units via LOGPACs, all coordinated through the division SBO.
All right, we've got the principles, the pillars, the organizations. Now we have to confront the toughest challenge: actually planning and sustaining forces during large-scale combat operations, or LSCO. Field Manual 4.0 is pretty blunt about this, isn't it?
It is. It states clearly that LSCO introduces massive complexity, unprecedented lethality, and incredible speed compared to, say, counterinsurgency operations.
And that just drastically increases the demand for everything.
Everything. Fuel consumption skyrockets with maneuver warfare. Maintenance demands go through the roof because equipment is pushed harder and damaged more often. Medical support has to cope with potentially large numbers of casualties, and you need a robust system for personnel replacements.
When you're talking about maneuvering large formations, like a corps with multiple divisions, the scale is just immense. Hundreds of square miles.
Exactly. That sheer size, combined with the speed, puts an incredible strain on traditional linear logistics. Planners can't just react. They have to rely on really rigorous, continuous analysis.
And that analysis starts before the operation even kicks off, with something called sustainment preparation of the operational environment, or SPOE.
Right. And SPOE isn't just a one-time report you file away. It's a continuous process of analyzing everything in the operational environment that could affect support.
What kinds of things are you looking at?
You're looking at existing infrastructure, roads, bridges, railways, airfields, ports. Can they handle our heavy equipment? Can the bridges take the weight of a fuel tanker or a tank transporter? You're analyzing the physical environment, the terrain, the climate, hydrography, water sources, even endemic diseases that could impact troop health. And you're looking at local resources. What can we potentially leverage from the host nation or the local economy?
And this analysis drives early decisions.
Absolutely. For instance, knowing the local water sources are scarce or contaminated tells you that you need to prioritize deploying water purification units or arranging for large-scale bottled water procurement early on, maybe using those financial management tools we discussed. It shapes the initial sustainment posture.
Okay, so that preparation feeds into the ongoing distribution management process. What does that cycle look like?
It's the continuous loop that makes sure material gets where it needs to go. It starts when a mission is received. Planners identify what the tactical units will need. They validate those requirements. Is this realistic? Do they really need that much?
And figure out how to get it.
Right. Coordinate the acquisition, sourcing it from the SSA or higher. Plan the transportation, which trucks, which routes, when. And it doesn't end until the item is delivered, used, and maybe even disposed of properly. It's a constant cycle of collaboration between the SPO material managers deciding what to send and the transportation planners deciding how to send it.
Now, given the speed and chaos of LSCO, how do commanders ensure their intent for sustainment is understood and followed, especially when plans change?
This is where mission orders become absolutely critical, especially in sustainment. Simplicity in orders, like the principle, is key.
So not overly detailed instructions.
Exactly. Mission orders emphasize the desired outcome, the results to be attained, and the commander's overall intent. They don't spell out every single step of how to move every pallet or fuel truck.
Why is that important?
Because it empowers subordinate leaders like that forward support company commander or the composite truck company commander to exercise disciplined initiative. When the plan inevitably hits friction, when the enemy does something unexpected, they understand the goal and can adapt their actions to achieve it without waiting for new, detailed instructions. It keeps the support flowing in line with the commander's aim.
Okay, let's talk about how sustainment priorities might differ between offensive and defensive operations. In the offense, what's the main focus?
In the offense, it's all about momentum and operational reach. Sustainment has to enable continuous movement and exploitation. So planners must anticipate exceptionally high demands for Class 3, bulk fuel.
Keep the tanks moving?
Keep everything moving relentlessly. And also high volumes of Class B ammunition to support breaching operations, suppressive fires, and maintaining fire superiority.
Are there specific techniques used here?
Yes. Operations like refuel on the move, ROM, become critical. This involves quickly refueling formations during very brief halts, or sometimes even while they're moving slowly, to extend their range and maintain tempo without long pauses.
What else is key in the offense?
Because you're often moving into contested territory and expect heavy fighting, you have to plan robustly for mass casualty events and have a system ready for large-scale personnel replacement operations to maintain combat power.
Okay, now flip that. In the defense, how do priorities shift?
In the defense, the focus shifts more towards building combat power in prepared positions and maximizing protection and survivability. Commanders use the preparation time afforded by the defense to really optimize their sustainment posture.
How? What does that look like?
It means pre-positioning critical supplies, Class 1, especially water, Class 3 fuel, Class V ammo, Class 8 medical, Class 9 parts into well-dispersed survivable caches or storage points within the defensive area, often close to planned fighting positions.
And maintenance.
Maintenance efforts are focused on fixing battle-damaged equipment as far forward as possible, often at designated maintenance collection points near the front. The goal is rapid repair and return to the fight, leveraging that field maintenance capability to minimize the need to evacuate equipment rearward. Build that combat power and keep it there.
Now, underpinning all of this planning, offensive or defensive, is the harsh reality the doctrine now fully embraces: the contested logistics environment.
This is the game changer. We must assume that peer adversaries will have the capability to observe, target, disrupt, delay, and attack our forces, including our sustainment elements, in all domains.
What kinds of attacks?
Everything. Long-range precision fires missiles, rockets, artillery targeting our supply routes, lines of communication, and key nodes like brigade support areas or the division supply support activity. Electronic warfare jamming our communications and GPS. Cyber attacks crippling our logistics networks. Even attacks on space assets impacting navigation and communication.
So that forces us right back to the principle of survivability. But I have to ask, this doctrinal push for dispersion, scattering forces, and logistics nodes to make them harder targets, doesn't that directly conflict with the principle of economy? Isn't it much less efficient to deliver supplies to lots of small, scattered locations?
That's a fantastic question, and it highlights a core tension. The answer is yes, it absolutely creates tension. Dispersion is inherently less efficient in terms of distribution resources than consolidating everything in one big base.
So why do it?
Because in a contested environment, survivability takes precedence over pure efficiency. A large, consolidated logistics hub might be efficient, but it's also a very juicy, vulnerable target. Losing it in a single strike could cripple an entire operation.
So commanders have to accept the trade-off.
They have to. They must accept the increased complexity and potentially higher resource expenditure that comes with dispersed base clusters to ensure the sustainment infrastructure can survive and continue to function under attack. Big fixed bases are liabilities now.
And it's not just physical attacks, right? You mentioned cyber and space.
Correct. Commanders have to assume that the digital information systems we rely on for logistics visibility, things like the Global Combat Support System Army, will be degraded or denied at times. When those systems go down, you lose that real-time picture of where supplies are.
So what's the backup?
You need robust, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency communication plans, PACE plans. These often involve falling back on older, less sophisticated methods: voice radio, runners, manual tracking systems, grease pencils on maps. You need ways to maintain situational awareness and C2 of logistics, even when the high-tech stuff fails. Unobstructed, reliable digital communication is no longer guaranteed. It's a luxury we can't assume we'll have.
Wow. Okay, that really paints a picture of the immense challenge.
Yeah.
It brings us towards the end of our deep dive today into the foundations of sustainment for tactical forces. It seems incredibly clear that sustainment isn't just an afterthought. It's the continuous thread, the connective tissue, linking strategic resources all the way down to the tactical battles. And it's all done through this structured, principle-driven process we've discussed.
That's right.
And those principles, especially things like anticipation, integration, survivability, continuity, They are absolutely what enable a maneuver commander to actually have freedom of action,
Yeah.
keep fighting effectively.
Couldn't agree more. And I think the key takeaway for you, the listener, is that the quality of sustainment planning at every level is an absolute determinant of operational success.
From the forward support company commander planning that next LOGPAC.
All the way up to the division sustainment brigades synchronizing support across hundreds of miles. Every decision, every plan is directly linked to whether an operation achieves its objectives, extends its reach, or simply culminates prematurely because it ran out of gas, bullets, or blood. Sustainment planning is operational planning. They are inseparable.
A powerful concluding thought. So building on everything we've discussed, the absolute necessity for dispersion, the lethality of this contested environment, and the current heavy reliance on those composite truck companies and other tactical wheeled vehicles we talked about. Here's something to chew on. How far into the future can that model remain viable? Before things like large-scale aerial resupply, maybe autonomous ground systems have to become the primary means of distribution, just to ensure both survival and the speed needed on that future battlefield.
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? How do we sustain the fight when the traditional ways become too vulnerable or too slow?
Definitely something for future deep dives. We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for joining us.